So let's kick off with the Telegraph, Leah, who have been dominating the news in a manner unseen since the MP's expenses scandal with their little scoop.
Yes, they've got this scoop. I mean, it's not that amazing, but because they've got it, they're making a big story out of it. So Matt Hancock, who was the health secretary at the time, mounted a rearguard action to close schools during COVID, despite Sir Gavin Williamson, who's the education secretary, battling tooth and nail to keep the classrooms open, according to these leaked WhatsApp messages that the Telegraph have got their hands on. So this had a huge impact on children. And remember, children weren't really affected by coronavirus, especially the first variants that came through. Just didn't.
In fact, everyone under about 35 wasn't really affected, which is probably half of the teaching staff as well, wasn't it? I mean, that did occur to me at the time that you could understand if children were taking the thing into school and. But most teachers were in a reasonably sort of good position to fight it off. Yeah, and there
seems to be this idea within the government that the population were incredibly fearful and worried about their children. And I don't think people really were. I don't think anybody really worries about their children getting a cold that much.
They were worried about their children having mental health crises and missing a year of schooling. Much more worried about that.
Absolutely, and that's what we've got now. Now we've got, and there's a whole sort of generation of kids who haven't really re-engaged with the school system, and we're seeing the negative consequences of that now.
I've got a 15-year-old, and I sometimes suddenly remember that he spent a year sort of on and off at school not long ago, and when he went back had to wear a mask and so on, and it seems bizarre, but it's been memory hold, I guess, to some extent. This is the same government, isn't it, that we're living with. We haven't had a general election since then. There's been a clean sweep.
Well, I'm wondering if Matt Hancock was in hock to big teacher. So, because teachers wanted a year off.
Well, there's a lovely.
I mean, not that they worked that hard in the first place.
This is off of my phone direct messages, but somebody shared this one. Something like him saying, "Matt Hancock, what a bunch of absolute." I'll say the word, arses, the teaching unions are. And Gavin Williamson says, I know, they really do just hate work. That was an exchange on Twitter, on the WhatsApp messages that humanises them to some extent. Do you want to say something on that?
Yeah, just that this is the first thing that's ever made me have sympathy for Gavin Williamson. I never thought it would happen. And yet somehow, to hear that Matt Hancock was mocking him, I mean, this was like, it's a fight between two mice, really. I mean, both of them seem the feeble versions of humans. But Gavin Williamson was getting it right and then had to do another U-turn. I remember the period when we were mocking him for doing all the U-turns. He wasn't the source of at least one of them.
No, I always think that, although it is very tempting to allow your anger to flood your system when you read about government cock-ups, but it's not always obvious who is actually to blame. It's not always obvious who has been just left holding the squalling baby at the end of it all, and any sort of, especially when you have obviously a fairly unprecedented situation like this, where it's not quite clear who has the hierarchy. Normally you would know in a school situation, but then you also have a clinical situation, and it would be obvious. But you're trying to integrate these things.
It's important to remember you might not know who's to blame, but someone's to blame.
Yes,
let's not let that get away from us.
And something that comes out that is more substantive is that Matt Hancock didn't test people going into care homes. Which then, I think somebody compared it to a medieval siege, firing diseased carcasses over the city walls.
Or who was it who said that, Churchill, who said that Lenin was sent into Russia like a plague bacillus in a train in about 1916, deliberately in order to stir up trouble. I mean, I have some sympathy for releasing the virus in the care homes.
Somebody wants to inherit a new house.
The long-term benefits to social care challenges, and the property crisis and all the rest of it.
You could do that. You could do that with a machine gun as well.
But this would have alleviated all sorts of potential guilt that people might have felt about it. Anyway,
about using a machine gun.
Yeah, that's true.